Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. Georgia failed to win the SEC East in 2020, but make no mistake about it, the Bulldogs are the team to beat in the division this year, and they have everything they need to get to the college football playoff. Georgia comes in at number 4 in our early Gridiron Expert Top 25, and I'm telling you guys, this is the year that Georgia needs to get back to the playoff. They have the talent to do it. They have the schedule to do it. And again, everything is just lining up so perfectly for Kirby Smart down in Athens, where 10-2, like the FPI projects, or anything less than a playoff berth, would most likely be seen as a disappointment. And the thing is, guys, with Georgia right now, it all starts with their quarterback in JT Daniels. That's been the missing piece for so long now down in Athens, is where and when will they find that quarterback that can get them to the next level? Jake Fromm wasn't horrible, but he's no JT Daniels. Listen to this number. Over the entire time that Kirby Smart has been at Georgia, the Bulldogs had 4 300-yard passing games. 4 300-yard passing games during the time that Kirby Smart's been at Georgia. When JT Daniels took over for the final 4 games of the year, he had 2 300 passing yard games. Think about that. 4 total games in the entirety of his career at Georgia. JT Daniels comes in and does it in half of the games that he starts at the end of 2020. I can guarantee you there are going to be a lot more of those in 2021. So Daniels is back. 7 starters on offense are back. 4 starters on defense are back. Yes, they lose the most talent, I think, and have the biggest holes to fill on the defensive side of the ball, but they're dealing with one of the better defensive minds and head coaches in the game right now in Kirby Smart. I think the Bulldogs are going to be just fine. And when you look at their schedule, guys, when you look at their schedule, it is so favorable for Georgia. The fact that after they play Clemson in the season opener, they should be favored in every single game after that, and they might be slightly favored against the Tigers. Who knows? Of course, we'll find that out closer to time. But let's start up here with Clemson. They play that game in Charlotte, the season opener, the most anticipated game of Week 1, because this will be a top 4, top 5 matchup to kick off the 2021 college football season. And you can't ask for anything better. This is such a big game for both of these programs. But the storyline that I focus on the most for this Clemson-Georgia game is 2 things. First off, Georgia, with the amount of defensive starters that they lost, how will they be able to handle Clemson's offense? Because, yes, we know they lost Trevor Lawrence. We know they lost Travis Etienne. But DJ Uiagalelei is going to be phenomenal. Some say even better than Trevor Lawrence. And we saw him in action a little bit at times in 2020. So DJ Uiagalelei and Clemson's offense up against Georgia's defense, will the Bulldogs be able to crack down and slow down that Tigers offense? And the second thing I'm looking at in this game, guys, is think about this. Someone's going to lose this game, obviously. But yet Clemson and Georgia are both legitimate playoff contenders. But let's just say Georgia loses this game. The Bulldogs fail to beat Clemson and get that resume-boosting win on their schedule. All right, that's great. Well, the room for error now becomes so much smaller for the Bulldogs, because they lose 1 game somewhere on this schedule, and they're done. It's 2 losses, because they most likely have to play Alabama in the SEC championship game. Now, we're not saying they're going to lose to Alabama. We're not saying it's a guaranteed loss, but 2 losses and getting into the playoff is extremely difficult to do. Extremely difficult to do. They win this game against Clemson, they're sitting very pretty, because they might be able to run the table, go undefeated, and even if they were to lose in the SEC championship game, would still get into the Final Four, would still get into the college football playoff. So while I'm not saying this Clemson game makes or breaks Georgia's season, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens here, because it'll be interesting to see if they were to fall to the Tigers, and then the only other loss, let's say, is to Alabama in the championship game. Do they get in as a 2-loss team, where their 2 losses are to maybe the ACC champ, the SEC champ, maybe the number 1 and number 2 teams in the country? So that's how big a deal this Clemson game is. Georgia gets it, huge resume-boosting win. They're pretty much set. They lose that game, season is not over, not even close. Playoff hopes are still alive, SEC title hopes are still alive, but the room for error becomes a lot smaller. Cannot afford to slip up in the regular season, and if they were to lose in the title game of the SEC, what does the playoff committee choose to do then? This Clemson game is going to be huge, has a chance to be an instant classic. And again, guys, following the Clemson game, we can kind of breeze through their schedule a little bit because UAB, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, their two cross-division games are Arkansas and Auburn. They draw them out of the West. They don't draw Alabama like they did last year. They don't draw LSU. They don't draw Texas A&M. They don't draw Ole Miss. Ole Miss would even be relatively difficult. They draw Arkansas and Auburn. They played Arkansas last year, murdered the Razorbacks in Fayetteville. It was close for a while, pulled away in the second half once they figured out some quarterback issues and the defense stepped up. Then they've got Auburn, obviously the big-time rivalry game. They're always going to draw the Tigers there. But they're a team that we really didn't know what to expect from them. Bo Nix really isn't anything that special. Brand new head coach in Brian Harsin. Yes, it's on the road. If they are exceeding expectations, this game could be tougher than maybe people think. But again, it's the two draws out of the West are very favorable. The only way it could have been more favorable is maybe had they drawn Mississippi State. And I think they're going to improve a little bit this year. And we saw the Bulldogs actually challenge Georgia in Athens just last year. So the West draws aren't even that difficult. South Carolina, Vanderbilt, UAB don't really strike fear into anybody. If you're looking for a key stretch for Georgia, if you're looking for a key stretch of games that you could say, hey, maybe this is the toughest stretch here, it probably starts with Auburn and ends with Missouri. So you have Auburn, you have Kentucky at home, and that's big for Georgia because I would say that if I'm ranking the top three teams in the East right now, it's probably Georgia, Florida, and then Kentucky, followed closely by Missouri. So you look, Georgia in three consecutive games plays those other three teams in the East that are probably the most difficult for them, Kentucky, Florida, Missouri. So that's something to keep your eye on. But how fitting that Kentucky, Missouri are both at home. Florida, of course, going to be played in Jacksonville. They don't even have to travel on the road for any of those bigger threats within their division. Florida, of course, being a neutral site game. So they get Kentucky, they get the bye week, they get Florida in Jacksonville, and many would say that's the game that could determine the East, and it probably will. It probably will determine the SEC East, just like it did last year. Looks like it has for the last few years, really, between Kirby Smart and Dan Mullen. But we saw so many key pieces lost for Florida this last year. Kyle Trask, Kyle Pitts, basically their entire wide receiver core. We saw how bad the defense was for Florida last year. And let's keep in mind that JT Daniels wasn't playing against Florida. Let's think about that. Florida won the game last year against Georgia, but it wasn't with JT Daniels. They didn't have to play JT Daniels. And again, we're not predicting any games here. We're not predicting Georgia's record. We're not predicting whether we think they're going to win these games or lose these games. That will come later, I promise you. We will predict every single game for the Bulldogs and every single team, period. But the game against Florida is the one that many believe will determine the East. The rivalry game, not going to rule anything out. I'm not saying Florida is going to fall off the face of the earth. But last year's Florida team was better than this year's Florida team. So it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out, not to even mention the revenge factor that Georgia wants over the Gators and how important this game is going to be if maybe they lose to Clemson in the season opener. So Florida is probably the biggest game of that little stretch here. If you're looking for the two biggest games on Georgia's schedule, it's Clemson and Florida, no doubt about it. Season opener, right at the end of October. Those are the two biggest games on Georgia's schedule going into 2021. They get Missouri on November 6th. Missouri last year was a top 25 matchup. Georgia and Missouri in Columbia. Many thought that maybe Missouri would give them a fight, and Georgia went in there and blew them out of the water. Showed that Missouri wasn't quite there yet, although they did exceed expectations in year one under Eli Drinkwitz, and I think they'll continue to do so. Missouri at Tennessee, brand new management again. Josh Heupel comes in from UCF, but Tennessee's an absolute dumpster fire right now. Don't think many people are worried about them in 2021. Charleston Southern after that, at Georgia Tech. Still trying to find their footing under Jeff Collins, although they're getting there. And it will be great to see these two teams match up again because we didn't get to see too many in-state rivalry games unless they were within the conference. We didn't get to see many non-conference rivalry games in 2020 because of COVID. Made absolutely no sense. If you're telling me that a team can travel out of state to go play a conference game but can't play their in-state rival, it just didn't make any sense. But it's going to be great to see so many of these teams, Florida, Florida State, Georgia, Georgia Tech, so many teams like that get to play each other. Clemson, South Carolina face each other after getting that year off and ending so many long streaks of just consecutive games between these two programs. So at Georgia Tech, it'll just be a nice little reunion there. Bitter reunion, I'm sure. It'll be fun to see them meet back up on the field. The FPI projects Georgia to go 10-2. 10-2. I would venture to say that one of those losses is coming to Clemson. Maybe the other is to Florida. Maybe some other upset. Florida, Auburn, who knows? 10-2 is not going to cut it. 10-2 in the regular season will not cut it. It's still good enough to maybe get to the SEC championship game, but they would have to probably win that. And even then, it might be interesting to see what the committee chooses to do. Do they let in a 2-loss team into the playoff? The FPI, while they do have them going 10-2, projects Georgia to have a 17.2% chance to reach the college football playoff. The Bulldogs have a 17.2% chance to make the college football playoff. They haven't played a single game yet, and it's almost a 20% chance. That's not too bad. This team has everything they need. They have the coaching staff, they have the talent, they have the depth, and they certainly have the schedule to get back to the playoff. Something that's eluded them for the last few years. It's just a matter of whether or not Kirby Smart and the Bulldogs can seize that opportunity and maybe, just maybe, clinch their first national championship since 1980. So guys, thank you so much for joining us here at The Gridiron Expert. Thank you so much for watching us here at The Gridiron Expert. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification, get those notifications so you don't miss the remaining schedule previews, and of course you don't miss anything when prediction season starts here in just a few weeks, because I promise you, you're not going to want to miss any of those videos. So get those notifications. Check out everything down in the description below. So much exclusive content and so many exclusive offers for you guys, the diehard college football fans, to get you through this offseason, to enjoy during the regular season. I promise you don't want to miss out on those, so go give it a look. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.